Video games involve input, a way for the player to interact with the game. There are all different types of input, with buttons, paddles, wheels, levers, and more being used to take control of the action. The 2000s had popularized the use of touchscreens with devices like the iPhone and Nintendo DS, allowing for input that couldn't be replicated with regular keys. The Wii U gamepad had brought that type of direct interaction to a living room console. Many of its games would create touch-friendly interfaces with big, defined buttons, which is why Smash 4 is weird for not supporting touch. Even with titles that had a focus on traditional button controls, touch was usually an option to easily interact with maps or menus. The ability to touch, slide, and poke revolutionized how people think to interact with a screen. As a byproduct of porting over so many Wii U era titles, a lot of Nintendo Switch games support touch input. Equipped with a 10-point multi-touch panel, the Switch is an upgrade over the single-touch resistive screens found on previous Nintendo systems. While not vital, the touchscreen allows for quick and direct interaction. I found it quicker to reach for virtual buttons on the screen instead of using a controller to translate to a selection. It's possible to skip over options with a simple tap. Using a swipe to scroll with momentum is faster than a cursor that reaches a top speed. And zooming with 2 fingers feels more immediate than tilting an analog stick. Some games, like Super Mario Maker 2 and Clubhouse Games, use touch input to greatly enhance the gameplay. It allows for drawing coins, dragging mushrooms, and placing Goombas to feel more precise. Touch makes placing Othello pieces and sliding wooden blocks feel a little closer to their real-life counterparts. Even Sushi Strikers benefits from the speed of a finger when making combos. But given that the touchscreen can't be used while the Switch is docked, controller inputs are priority number 1. It isn't optimal for course creation, but Super Mario Maker 2 works with a standard controller. It has radial menus built with an analog stick in mind. Some games are designed so heavily around the touchscreen that they can only be played in handheld mode. Voez is a rhythm game that creates dynamic points on the screen, which are pressed in a piano fashion. Drawing application Colors Live turns the screen into a canvas for making art. Touch Battle Tank SP is a port of a 3DS game that has distinct, yet awkward controls for a system that already has a second analog stick. These handheld-only games aren't as common, but they usually focus on a unique control scheme. With so many Nintendo-published titles supporting touch, it's a little disappointing to find certain games that don't. This 3D Mario game supports touch input for the UI to make selections, but this other 3D Mario with a big scalable map doesn't. There are 2 Mario Kart games on Switch that support touch for menu selections, but this newer one doesn't. Bayonetta 1 and 2, but not 3. Obviously, these games work fine without touch input, but it's discouraging to find support in some games, but not others, especially sequels. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe rips away the touch-heavy boost mode from the Wii U original, but still retains touch input on the redesigned menus. The next 2D Mario game, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, has big, pushable buttons, which don't interact with touch. It feels like a step backwards. If only a handful of games make extensive and deliberate use of touch, why should a player bother experimenting with touch in controller-focused games? Why do I experiment with it? I don't take issue with standard button controls, but with certain menus it feels like something more direct is missing. The Nintendo Switch is equipped with a touchscreen, so in certain circumstances it feels silly not to use it. The home menu and quick settings support touch, so it can be jarring to get into a game and see that input doesn't work anymore. Not every game benefits from motion controls, and not every game needs touch. The standard button controls work, and in many cases are preferred. But technology has evolved to a point where touch was standardized. Nintendo themselves pushed it for a time, even in games that might have been better without it. Some controller-focused PC games allow mouse input in menus, but it's a toss-up if a Switch port will convert that for touch. Persona 5 Royal on PC has a cool-looking cursor based on Joker's dagger that can poke and prod through menus, but the Nintendo Switch has no touch support. Among Us makes heavy use of mouse controls, and even has a mobile version. On Nintendo Switch, button controls are an option, but touch is often the superior way to finish tasks. Sonic Mania, a 2D platforming game, has questionable mouse support in the menus on PC, but works even better with the Switch touchscreen. Taiko no Tatsujin allows a mouse to click on menu options and scroll through songs on PC, but that isn't an option for Switch. Even though Taiko doesn't support touch for menu selections, it does support it for hitting the drum. Taiko is part of a category of games that do make special use of touch controls, but aren't friendly with basic menus. Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour has a neat minigame to showcase all 10 points of the touchscreen, but once it's over, none of the menus allow a finger to interact with things. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate allows for freehand drawings to turn into stages, but keeps touch elements sandboxed in the editor. The Wonderful 101 Remastered uses finger-drawn shapes to create formations, but none of the menus react to touch. It's somewhat backwards to see games that benefit from touch in its main gameplay, but require a shuffle back to the controllers for menu selections. It can be disappointing when certain games don't support touch, but I'm appreciative of the ones that do. Some games create experiences that truly flourish when avoiding a standard controller. As helpful as touch can be, it needs to be considered with each title. A lot of the time, it isn't necessary, but it might be convenient. With consideration needed for both a docked and handheld state, most developers are focused on creating the best experience possible for a controller. With the initial Nintendo Switch reveal, there was uncertainty if the system would even have a touch-capable screen. But now, when going through Nintendo-published titles, there's a mishmash of games that do or do not support touch. While the console was crafted to allow touch experiences, the screen is merely a tool that developers can choose to use. Not every game uses every button, stick, or sensor on the controller, but the option remains available should a developer need it. The touchscreen is just one more choice in a smattering of utensils.